go and like research it for me because like I'm non-technical and I want to understand. So I was like, it's probably a scam, but I'll happily go, give it a Google for you. And I read about it and I was like, okay, this is cool. This is cool. This is cool. Yeah, you can go and invest in it. And then I discovered Ethereum. I was like, a world computer? Yes. Decentralized, censorship resistant? Yes. Why haven't we done this before? And I went to my line manager at the time at the bank and I was like, have we looked into blockchain? Because it would like completely revolutionize the banking space. And I remember it so clearly. He looked at me and he said, don't worry about it. It's a scam. It will blow over in 2 years. And I was like, oh my God, I have to get out of this. So I put in my notice and I applied to do the Consensys Bootcamp. And my last day of work and the last day of the Consensys Bootcamp were the same day. If you want to get motivated, that's what you do. You'd be unemployed the same day you finish. And I was like, oh my God, I have to get into the space. I have to get into the space. And I was like asking around if anyone knew anyone in Web3. And there was this fantastic dev house called Alumni that does like Web3 development studio. And I applied there as a junior Solidity developer. I got in. And I was really fortunate that they took me in because I had no experience. I had just done the bootcamp, like that was it. And they took me in. And the amazing thing about working at a dev house is you get to work on a lot of projects start to finish over and over and over again. And that by far was the most impactful way for me to learn Solidity in a production environment, right? Because like when you leave the Consensys Bootcamp, you have a very good understanding of like the concepts, right? Like what makes blockchain development different from regular development is actually understanding the blockchain like ecosystem, right? And then you have some basic Solidity, but you do not have production Solidity. So getting to work for a dev house where I got to like iterate on projects that got audited and actually get like real feedback from industry members really allowed me to like really upskill my Solidity. And then after that, I went and I did freelance for a year, which was great and very lucrative. I can highly recommend that. While I was freelancing, I did a lot of auditing work with Solidified because they have like a freelance network of auditors that they use. And then earlier this year, late last year, Optimism reached out to me and I've been at Optimism now for 3 months and they're very cool. So that's my background. And I'm really excited to like help you guys get into Web3. It's a very fantastic space.
Yeah, that sounds really fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so regarding my journey, so I have like 2.5 year experience now. So I'm pretty new. I mean, as a developer only. And the first introduction that I got to blockchain when I was at the UC Berkeley and I was attending a workshop and everyone asking questions regarding what is blockchain and everything. I had no idea. So when I came back to India, the first thing that I got to read was the Bitcoin white paper. And that's where I liked it, the global computer stuff, right? And that's how I started. Bitcoin and then Ethereum. But of course, I started my my job as a full stack developer because at that time I did not have any experience, right? And that's where I started. I started going for boot camps, training programs, and all. So first training program that I did was from Emergo, basically. And after doing that, I joined Consensys back in I think 2020 September. And that went on like approximately 4 months. And once I had completed the program, I got a job in Multiply Finance. So Multiply Finance is basically like lending borrowing platform similar to Aave. And that's how I got to work on DeFi and NFTs and everything. So for me, it has been a pretty new. Of course, I've been on like blockchain for like 1 year only, but I'll be joining Consensys only soon, next week as a blockchain developer. So yeah, that's new from my side. And yeah, basically that's what my journey has been. Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing your journey. So when you first graduated from the bootcamp, do you find looking for job, because from what I can see, most of the jobs require at least now they require at least 2 years of 2 years plus experience. How do you overcome that hurdle? Or what advice would you give?
This is just a little mini team from the Consensys Bootcamp, like a post thing. Am I on?
Oh, was that Luke? Was that you?
It was me. Sorry, I was off mute
okay.
as I was changing from my phone to my laptop. Hi. Okay, I'll go off.
Hi, Luke. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, I believe a lot of graduates from the bootcamp, they are looking for work now, and they will have encountered this kind of situation where a lot of adverts require at least 2 years of experience. How do you overcome that?
Okay, so for me, I mean, while doing the, trainings and bootcamp, right? It was like 1 year total in total. I mean, Consensys one and Emergo one, right? So I had pretty much good experience with the blockchain stuff. Of course, not production, but something to show like on my resume, and of course to demonstrate that also. Along with that, the thing that helped me the most was hackathons. So I started doing hackathons just after I completed my training from Emergo, and I did hackathons from ETH Global, like 8 to 9 hackathons from there, and then Devfolio and Chainlink, right? And my only objective was to learn as much as I can about the protocols that are already available, about something new that is there to experiment with, to learn, right? And doing all those things just build up my resume, build up my confidence, and of course made me realize like there are actually projects which are actually looking out for blockchain developers. And and with my full stack developer background, so that this thing also helped me. Full stack developer background actually helps you get a job into blockchain, because getting a job in which like you completely work on a Solidity project, right? That's even, I would say, not a lot of projects actually work completely on Solidity part. So you might sometimes have to work on the I would say full stack development part if you're joining a small team or something, that startup which are going to come up with a new product, something like that. So with the full stack experience of 1.5 year and 1 year of experience of training and everything, and then hackathon projects, so this completely like helped me landing a job in blockchain space particularly, I would say. Yeah.
I would definitely second the hackathons. I've done a lot of hackathons in my time, and they're a great way as well to get like feedback from actual developers who have real experience, because you can get into a team where everyone else will probably have a lot more experience than you. So when you write code, you can get like real high quality feedback. I actually just popped a link in the chat. I've done enough hackathons that I have a nice little formula you can follow to like find a good team and have like a good hackathon where you don't end up kicking and screaming. But definitely hackathons are a great way to learn and get real developer feedback on your code, which is the like most important thing you need to do to get your Solidity up to a production level, is to actually get feedback.
Yeah, I would agree.
Thank you. Could you share with us how do you guys manage your time among different activities? Because I find that as a junior developer, we have to juggle with quite a number of things. Like we try to build a portfolio of projects, and then we try to join hackathon, and we try to improve on Solidity, and also learning front end, or maybe learning new tools as well, like the graph or some security auditing tool. There are just a lot of things going on. How do you manage and prioritize your time with all these different activities?
Okay. I mean, that's something that I always think about, like how do I plan everything so that everything is good in the future regarding my career and of course personal life and everything, right? And every time the plan fails, that's the truth actually. But you have to keep planning and trying to do at least 50% of it what you have planned, basically, not if not 100%. And the thing that I follow basically is like I'm always enrolled in a boot camp. Like let it be like Solidity audit boot camp, or let it be like Cardano boot camp or something, like always be in a boot camp where you are required to like do some work weekly, right? Either join a session or like do some practical or work on a project, something like that. And you can always work on a side project. I mean, if you want to like let's say go in a startup or something like that, you can always go with that path. So always use your weekends for like a boot camp or a side project or something like that. That's what have worked for me. And the weekdays, of course, that's for the full-time job. And if you want to learn something, like you can give 1 hour or 2 hours something every day during the weekdays to learn something new. So yeah, of course, it has not like worked 100% for me, but of course, I try to do this thing. Use the weekends for like boot camps and side projects, and work days for like learning something new, and full-time job. Yeah.
Yeah, managing your time is very difficult, and everyone has a different method of doing it. I will say, however, in the blockchain space specifically, I am yet to meet any developer, like full stack or Solidity specific, who has not burnt out. It's kind of how you find where your limit is and like how much you can actually do is by doing too much and then not being able to do everything and then burning out and being like, oh my God, I don't know how to do anything. And then like realizing like, oh, I just overcommitted myself. Next time I know to stop, on the third side project, maybe that's my limit, So I would just say like, kind of plan to burn out. I know that's a horrible thing to say, but kind of plan that you're going to overcommit and that you might not be able to finish all the projects you've committed to. And in terms of like how to manage your time between learning and coding, I generally like to say that it's like the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of your time, if you can, like 80% of the time that you can assign to Solidity, 80% of that you should be coding. You should be building projects start to finish, like really trying to work on iterating projects, because that's when you learn the most, is when you finish a project and you're like, right, what did I do horribly on this project? And like taking the time when you finish a project to actually go back and reflect and be like, oh, what would I have done differently if I started this project now, right? How would I have coded this differently? How would I have made it easier to connect the front end to the smart contracts and that kind of stuff? And then spend that 20% time learning. And try to like really high impact learning. So like trying to find good free courses, which there are so many out there. Like you do not have to pay for additional learning resources, especially in like the security space. There's lots of free resources. So yeah, 80% coding, specifically trying to code like mostly Solidity, and then 20% learning is what I found especially in the beginning. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I find that I would like to get your view about writing your journey, or kind of documenting your journey. Because I know, Veronica, I saw your Medium blog actually. I saw you have been writing about hackathons and things like that. How do you find that help your journey, help in your journey as a developer? I don't know if you if you do that as well. If you do, please feel free to share.
Yeah, actually I don't.
Yeah, so I mean, what actually started me writing articles was I Googled something, like I had an issue in Solidity. I actually think it started with encoding and decoding function calls. I was Googling it, I could not find anything. So I literally had to like brute force. I mean, this was back in like Solidity 0.4, okay, guys. But like I could not find any resources. So then I was like, okay, well, I just spent all of this time in R&D figuring out how it works. Let me write an article about it. And I found it to be really, really helpful. You would not believe how many times I Google a question and my own article comes up because there's just nothing written about it. So like if you have the passion for doing writing, I would definitely recommend, if you figure out something and you're like, that was really hard, I couldn't find good resources for myself for this, go and write an article, because I promise you there's like 1,000 other devs who are struggling with that exact same thing who would love to read how you figured it out. So I encourage at any step to like give back to the community and like write an article and like help. But obviously first you need to figure it out. It does not help to put out an article of like code that doesn't work or things like that. But it really helps you also to like really figure out what's going on, because you can't write an article about it until you understand every aspect, because while you're writing it, you'll be like, oh, okay, what happens in this edge case? And then you realize you don't know and you have to go experiment. And it's a great way to like reinforce your learning. Plus, if you say anything wrong on the internet, you will find out very quickly. So just be warned, it's a little bit of a harsh world out there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. How do you keep up with the developments in the blockchain, given that there are always constantly some new developments, some new vulnerabilities, for example? What kind of resources do you subscribe or follow?
Okay. For me, it will be like mostly following the auditing companies on Twitter, actually. So there they basically tweet about like all the findings and the tweets, I mean like audits that they do basically, that they can make public. and also reading the audits of like protocols, let's say Aave or Unisap and all those things, right? So you have to go through all those audits and get to know like what are the current issues and everything that is being found and everything, right? So that's how get to know about the vulnerabilities and everything. And regarding development part, I would say again hackathons and some articles on Medium articles, basically like some Medium writers you can follow and all those things. So yeah, basically from there you can get to know about latest things, and of course use them and test with them and try to replicate and everything. Then you got to know a bit more about it and try to use that in your project also. It's always good to work on a POS of something that you want, POC of something that you want to actually you like, and post that on your GitHub, and let there be issues and everything, and then you can work on it basically. Yeah.
Sorry, I've in my years tried quite a few different things to keep up with the space, because nothing moves as fast as crypto. And the best way I found, which is maybe the laziest way you can do it, is I just subscribe to these various newsletters, and then that's how I keep up with the space, is I just go see what makes the cut. So Week in Ethereum is just general ecosystem news, very important. Rect News is a great place to keep up with the hacks, and like the latest hacks, the biggest hacks, and like a decently in-depth look into like what happened and how the project got hacked and that kind of stuff. Blockthread is a little bit less Ethereum specific and kind of more blockchain level security stuff, but it's very good and I would recommend following it as well. But Week in Ethereum by far is like how I actually keep up with what's going on. That, and if you guys get a little bit more into the protocol side of things, which is where I am now at Optimism, following the Ethereum Magicians, they also have, like you can get push updates from the Ethereum Magician forum, and then that's where you can find out about like conversations about new EIPs and that kind of stuff. But generally, don't burn yourself out keeping up. It's the worst like use of your time, because in the beginning, what you need to be focusing on is getting up to par. Then you can worry about keeping up. So like don't burn yourself up keeping up, because it really, you can't keep up with everything. So choose like 2 or 3 areas where you're interested in, like DeFi, maybe DAOs or NFTs or security. Keep up with just that. Don't try to keep up with the whole ecosystem. It's massive. You will burn doing that.
Yeah, I would say like I'm in that phase, like where I want to find out where I want to work basically. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Good advice. So one last question from me, and then we'll go into free flow Q&A. Given what you have learned and experienced so far in your journey, if you can go back in time to when you first started as a developer, what advice or is anything you would do differently?
Okay. Okay. Can you just repeat that question? I didn't get that actually.
Oh, okay. My question is, given what you have learned and experienced so far in your journey as a blockchain developer, if you can go back in time, is there anything you would do differently?
Yeah, learn about protocols as soon as possible and look at their smart contract and try to understand it and try to, run it, test it and everything, right? That's the thing that I did a bit later on. I mean, I tried to integrate them, but I didn't focus more upon like how the contracts are written and try to understand them and everything, right? Those things are very much important, of course. That thing I think we can start doing as soon as possible. And of course, be updated with the Solidity updates, like whatever it is going to be there, right? So you have to be updated with Web3.js and Solidity updates and everything. I would say, yeah, and be more open to what is new in the industry as a whole. I mean, like, let's say you like something as like DeFi protocols, right? But right now everything is going about metaverse and crypto games, basically, right? So you have to be open about that also, and try to just get some review about it, like how it works, and if you can contribute to that, like in a particular project or something like that, right? Because later on, when the DeFi boom is like, let's say like it is not that much, and then crypto and NFT games are there everywhere, right? Then it will be easy for you to switch, because you have the knowledge, but you will also have that the core concept of the thing that is there, right? That is also important. And all these things I'm learning like from last 2 or 3 months, basically, because earlier my focus was basically like to write smart contracts, but now I realize like along with writing smart contracts, we also have to be aware about the industry, basically. Yeah. So that's, yeah.
Yeah, something I definitely wish I'd started doing earlier is when I was at Consensys and I was starting all these projects, I made all the repos private because I was like, oh, I don't want people looking at my code. It's so terrible. Like, don't do that. Don't do that. Put everything out in the public. If I could go back, I would have done all of my projects on public, just because, first of all, no one is going to go read your code, especially not if it's like, you know, your like some project you did for a boot camp or like an early hackathon. No one's going to read your code. Don't worry about it. Just get those commits. And then the second thing I would have done is I would have got into security sooner. I spent far too long figuring out Solidity, and I didn't spend enough. Like I spent, I think, a full year writing Solidity before I even started looking at like deep security concepts and that kind of stuff. And understanding how to hack a smart contract increases your understanding of how Solidity works so much faster. Yeah, that, and don't be afraid of assembly, but do not use it in production. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, thanks for the advice. So now I'll open up to the floor for your questions. Feel free to ask each other questions if you have any question for each other.
Okay, I mean, I have one question. Basically, it's like, what's the difference that basically you find when going from developer to the security aspect of Solidity, basically, and how did you do that? And was that easy? I mean,
Yeah, it was not easy. I can answer that question quickly. So the way I think about it is like writing Solidity is creating something. Doing security and doing auditing is breaking something, right? It's a very different mindset to come into it with, right? Like, because when you're building Solidity, you're like, I need to make this gas efficient. I need to make this like easy for users to use. And I want to make it easy for auditors to understand, right? Those should be your top three. Readability is very important. When I got into auditing, I realized that more and more. Like if you have poorly written code that I can't read, your audit quality, it doesn't matter if you got audited from like Trail of Bits or Open Zeppelin. If your code is hard to read, you are going to have a worse quality audit. That's a little side tangent. But the way I actually got into it initially was, what was it? It was there's these like Hack Solidity hackathons that happen. They're like sponsored by Open Zeppelin. I'll see if I can find a link for you guys. But there's like these like try break this code and things like capture the ETH and the Ethernaut challenges and those kind of things. So that's kind of how I started, was just like, right, how do I hack this? Like it's like getting into that adversarial mindset is the hard part, is like actually like switching how you think about the code. And from there, it just was a lot of practice, a lot of like, go look at production level code and be like, right, if I was a hacker, how would I break this? Go onto Immunify, go look at all the grants out there and just go like read code with the mindset of like, can I break this? And don't be afraid to sit for like 3 hours and write like a little JavaScript or a smart contract thing to actually try and exploit it, because that's where you'll learn the most, because you'll try exploit it, write the whole Solidity JavaScript combination and then be like, oh, actually it's secure. But you learned something then. You learned something very important, which is like what looks insecure but is secure and what looks secure and is insecure. So brute force was pretty much how I got into security, ironically, which was just, you know, trying a lot, reading a lot of contracts. I also started doing something about 2 years in that made a massive difference to my understanding of Solidity, which was, for a while, I don't do it anymore, but I would not put money in a protocol that I had not personally audited. So like go read like the actual code. Obviously for things like Uniswap, you're going to really struggle to keep up with that level of code because it's like the third iteration. It's highly gas optimized. It is not very readable. So like, don't look at the blue chips. You want to look at like, you know, the white collar level of projects, but that was something that would really help me. It was a terrible year for my investments, but it really helped me understand projects and like how things work.
Okay, yeah, I got it. Yeah, I'm also I will try to go from developer to security aspect very soon. Like, so that's why I need. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. Another question that I had basically was like freelancing stuff. So you mentioned like you gave like about 1 year to freelancing basically after doing Consensys Bootcamp. So how did you find like freelancing jobs basically, and how did you plan it for a long term? Like 1 year is a long term for doing freelancing stuff, and how did you like it affected your resume and your future like decisions regarding your career, basically into blockchain space? Yeah.
Yeah. So with the freelancing, I actually was very lucky in the sense that I didn't have to find clients. They kind of just came to me. And that's where it comes back to writing articles, because if you have a big enough, and I don't have like a particularly big online presence, like I have like 10 articles maybe. Okay, you guys, like don't let me hype myself up too much. But like writing those articles meant that people were reaching out to me. And like whenever you write an article, post it on LinkedIn. All the Web2 people are still there, okay? So like posting it everywhere, and then like people would just come to me with freelance work. So lucky for me, that wasn't the issue. But then in terms of like managing your time when you work at a startup is hard. Managing your time when you're a freelancer is like impossible. So the biggest advice I could have for anyone who wants to get into freelancing, first of all, realize you are going to be doing everything yourself. Second of all, go watch some YouTube videos on how to like project manage, because you are going to be the developer, the project manager, and the liaison with the client. And you need to be good at all three of those things to be a good freelancer, because it doesn't matter how amazing your code is. If you are bad at communicating deadlines with your client, you will not have any more clients. So that's the first bit of advice. And then the second thing, like specifically in freelance, is to be very wary of the projects you take on. Rather not have work than build a scam, because you will never be able to like live that down or remove that from your profile, right? Like if people see that you're associated with a scam, it will burn you. So like there were lots of projects where they were like, oh, we want to make this token, right? But it needs to be drainable. And I was like, no, thank you. You know, next. So just like make sure you're keeping up with like a decent level of quality of projects. Obviously, you know, beggars can't be choosers, but you can be a little bit fussy. All right, don't like lower yourself too low. And then the hardest part is actually like figuring out a good rate for yourself, like an hourly rate, and like billing well and making sure that you're not undercharging. So after every project I did, I would go look at how much I billed them and how many hours I quoted initially versus actually ended spending up on the project. And then I'd be like, okay, well, I need to increase my rate because I actually, you know, said I was going to take like 50 hours, and then I ended up only taking like 30 hours, which meant I got charged less for the same amount, like for the same quoted work, right? It will also make you much better through brute force again at estimating how long it's going to take you to do work, because you will have a lot of practice with it. But generally going freelance is a great way to like figure out how you work, how long it takes you to work. And really, it's also a great opportunity to kind of work in the different sectors of blockchain without committing too hard to them. So you can maybe build out an NFT project, see how that feels to you, and maybe do some DeFi stuff and figure it out. A good way, sorry, I know I'm talking in circles here, but a good way to find clients initially is, if you are struggling with that part of it, is to actually go work for DAOs. A lot of DAOs have really good hourly rates, especially for Solidity developers, because there's such a shortage of them. DXDAO, for example, they have reasonable rates and it's like really low friction to get started. So if you're also looking for experience, like generally just looking for experience, go work for a DAO. They tend to be much more DXDAO. They tend to be much more accessible and like open. Also, generally going and looking at the projects that you like, go look on their GitHub. They probably have good first issues that you can go and try. And then also you get commits on like really big repos, which is a great thing for your profile, which you will need to work on quite well to get a good freelancing portfolio up and running.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I can share a bit about. I've actually been since the Consensys Bootcamp, I've been working with AirSwap DAO, and I've done two issues so far that have been accepted. So I'm quite glad about that. So yeah, I think that was a very good experience because you get feedback from.
No, sure. I was expecting you to cook something.
Okay. Yeah, that was a good experience because you get guidance from very experienced people working at the DAO, and you get them to review your code and give you feedback. Yeah, I'll recommend people to find these opportunities. I actually found a very good website called Cleoverse. I'm just typing in the chat where you can, sorry, let me just. Where you can go and look at how to join different DAOs. So they actually listed a lot of DAOs and what are the ways you can join the DAO. So that's quite a good website that I've found recently. Anyone else has any more questions?
There's a question in the chat here. In your opinion, does having Web 2 experience help you get Web 3 positions? I have 5 years experience in Web 2 and just finished the bootcamp. So generally just having a coding background and like experience coding does help quite a bit because like, for example, when I was fresh out of the bootcamp, I didn't have any Solidity experience, but I had 2 years Java experience in like an industry setting. And that definitely helped me convince them that I wasn't talking nonsense and I did actually know what I was talking about. So generally having Web 2 experience does actually help, especially if you go in at a full stack, because then you just need to pick up like Ethers or Web3 and you don't necessarily focus that hard on the Solidity. But then you can like, transition from that full stack position into a more Solidity focused position. So it definitely does help to have experience in the normal Web 2 world. Yeah.
Yes, like I would agree to that basically, and also like one advice from my side would be like never leave that Web 2 experience that you have actually. Like, of course, I understand like you want to go into blockchain thing completely. That's also okay, but keep doing some kind of stuff like Web 2 blockchain, like front end, back end development. Like that will eventually help you. I mean, later on. That's what I've realized because I kind of left that completely, and then suddenly like there's a requirement for a full stack blockchain developer, right? Then you will have to like focus on both of them. Yeah, focus more on the Solidity part if you completely want to switch to blockchain space.
Yeah. It'll also make you very popular in hackathons if you could do full stack, because
yeah,
often that's the lacking skill in hacks.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there's a question from Ben. I don't have any Web 2 experience either. I'm a computer science student transitioning from finance. Do you think it's still possible via hackathons?
Yes. Fast answer, yes. Long answer is you're going to maybe need to put in a little bit more work to prove that you can actually code, because comp sci is very different from production and like actually working in like a real environment. Not that it's like, a dismissible experience. It is still important that you have that background, and it will help you with like the project management stuff and like the other aspects. And generally just understanding how computers works helps. But I would definitely say that it's definitely possible. You're just going to need to work a little bit harder and make sure that you have a very solid portfolio of hackathon projects, projects that you just did because you thought it would be fun, and a good GitHub profile. Like that little green bar on your GitHub with all the like days of coding, that should be green. Okay. You don't have to work weekends every weekend, but it should be very green. That's the best way to like impress a recruiter, is if they go and like do the research into your GitHub and they see that you're active, contributing to lots of projects, and have, like go and doing good first issues on other projects, will definitely make your GitHub profile very strong for a development role.
Okay, another question. How do you organize yourself with all the tools and resources you use on a daily basis?
You want to take it first?
Would you like to elaborate a bit more, Tantley?
Yeah. I mean that there are a lot of tools online, and there are a lot of resources also that exist online. So how do you organize yourself with working with tools and learning? Uh, you know, I mean that there are lots of things that we can do on a daily basis. So how you just organize your day with all those tools?
Okay. I don't exactly understand the question, but yeah, I'll try to answer like as much as I was able to get it. So it's about like getting to know about the new tools that are out there, and the one that you already use, you should know like what are the updates that are basically made in those tools. So let's say Truffle or MetaMask, right? So you have to be aware about the updates that are basically made on those tools, basically from their GitHub repos and all, right? And for the new stuff, of course, you can follow people on Twitter, on LinkedIn, or like of course like somewhere where you get to know about it, some particular channel on YouTube, like Eat the Blogs, right? So there they basically discuss about the new stuff that is out there, which is actually being used and useful, right? So once you are aware about the new tools and aware about the updates in the existing tools, right, then you can decide basically like what do you want to use and how much you want to use the things that the resources that you basically have. You don't have to use all of that, but try to use something that actually makes it more efficient for you to write the code, and also like makes you write it faster and better and more secure. So yeah, that's the small bit of thing that I can say.
Yeah. So I personally, okay, there's a few things I want to say here. So first of all, I have a Notion that I obsessively update. If I find a cool new tool, I go add it to my Notion. And then in a call like this, when they're like, oh, where can I start? I already have a list of links that I can just go and copy paste and send them, because often it's the same 5 links that I need anyway. So first of all, just keep track of everything. Get Notion. Honestly, it's worth it. If you can have a free tier of Notion and not have to pay anything, I'm not getting paid by Notion, by the way. I just really love Notion. So definitely can recommend putting all your things in Notion. Second thing I would recommend is choose 1 or 2 tools that you're going to invest heavily into learning. So either Ethers or Web3 or Hardhat and Truffle, right? Pick one. Then what you do is you go onto their website, find their newsletter for their updates, subscribe to their newsletter for their updates, and then read it once a week or once every 2 weeks when it comes out. Because I don't have the time to go onto their website every time there's an update and go see what happens, but I do check my inbox regularly enough that I will actually go and read their update. And it's a nice way to figure out and hear about new features without having to put in all the effort of actually going and doing it. Then in terms of how I structure like my day, because I assumed you want a little bit more detail than that, so I'm happy to let you know. So what I like to do is I like to have a 2 to 3 hour session of like deep focus. So I'm a night owl, so my deep focus time is like after dinner. I have like a 3 hour session, and that's where I get like my deep coding work done. Like, you know, if you have a hard problem to solve, spend that 2 or 3 hours just like, you know, turn off notifications, go into it. If you're a morning person, then obviously the morning. Then also just because of like what my job entails, I need to spend like 2 or 3 hours communicating with people, having meetings, replying to Discord messages, generally making sure the house isn't on fire and that kind of stuff. So like more admin type stuff. And then I like to set aside an hour or 2 every single day to go read my entire inbox, because all of these lovely newsletters you just subscribe to can take hours to get through, because you're like, oh, that's interesting. Click the link, go read the link, go back to the original, you know, like page of 100 links. So just like dedicating a little bit of time every day to keeping up to date with the ecosystem is the best way to do it without burning yourself out or spending your entire weekend just reading stuff. Yeah, that's how I structure my day. And don't forget to eat and sleep enough. Don't sacrifice sleep. Your brain won't work.
Yeah, and also like don't open tabs, right? I will read it later on and keep opening on tabs. And there's like, yeah,
Don't do that.
Don't do that also. Yeah.
Or you will end up like me and have like 6 Chrome instances with like 100 tabs that you will never, ever, I promise you, you will never read them. Don't do it. Put it in your Notion, come back to it later. Don't leave a tab open. That's a good call out.
Yeah.
Someone asked what the simplest DAO you've come across on GitHub. So I actually recently just built a DAO framework because I am just that kind of person. So the simple, I don't know. Industry standard is compound, is governance alpha. That's the kind of standard DAO people use. OpenZeppelin actually just rewrote it to be a little bit more gas efficient and a little bit more flexible. I think they just called it governance. Thanks, guys. Love that naming convention. So if you want to build a DAO, go dig into the OpenZeppelin code, build a DAO locally, tear it apart, try upgrade things, try add features to get into DAOs. I'm a big DAO fan though, so yeah.
Do you have your own DAO?
I do have my own DAO. It's called Atlantis. It's a comp fork that's a bit more flexible and a bit more modular. But it's not production ready, so don't get too excited.
Nice. Yeah. So there is a question regarding working culture in the blockchain space. Okay, so I would say it actually varies depending upon the like company or the startup that you have joined. So if it's like a very small team, it could be like you could actually give a lot of time to the experiment part and learning about new stuff and everything. While if you have like completed your task basically, which is going to be there. But let's say you're in a big company, for example, Consensys, and then you might have a set defined of work every day that you will have to do, and then all the researching part and development part that you have to do for your own self, right? That you'll have to do on the extra hours. That won't be involved in that working hours. And non-tech skills, okay, I would say I don't know whether that will come into that non-tech skills. The most important part is update yourself with the industry, what is actually hot in the market. I mean, not in terms of investment or something, but generally what is going on with the blockchain space, either NFTs or DeFi or crypto games or metaverse, whatever it is, right? Update yourself with that, follow people and try to like give some time to that basically. Yeah, that will help you for sure.
Yeah. Sorry, my brain stopped working for a second there. Yeah, everything you said, 100%. On top of that, I would say some of the most useful skills you can have, especially if you're going to go the DAO freelance route, is you need to be able to take notes, because the crypto space is like one of the most valuable things you can do is join a meeting, take notes, and then distribute those notes to the people. That is something that often does not happen and is like the easiest way for a DAO to fall apart. The second thing is project management skills. Generally being able to make timelines, think about timelines, write a scope of work, like be able to write like, this is what I consider to be a thing. And then when this is done, the project is done. Project management skills is so important. There are a lot of very big brains in the crypto space, but what I found in all my time is that the bigger the brain, the more chaotic they are. So sometimes those big brain people generally really desperately need someone who's maybe not as big of a brain, but is a little bit more organized, can take meeting notes, can remind them of what they said last week. You know, generally keep things organized is a very important non-tech skill that the blockchain as a space as a whole is generally missing. It's just like organizational skills, specifically in the project management bubble of skills.
Yeah.
Oh, and then the work culture is generally really nice. Like I've never worked with so many people who are actually passionate. I mean, I have a banking background, so I mean, that's not a fair comparison, but I've never worked in companies where people are genuinely so passionate about what they're building and are genuinely invested in like the future of this product and like making it work well. Like that's something that I've only ever seen in the crypto space. Like it's genuinely such a engaged, wholesome space. You will still burn out though. That doesn't matter. Passion makes you burn out harder, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There's a question regarding like working with protocols. Something that worked for me, of course, I'll share that. So it is like, I think when I was in the Consensys Bootcamp, so someone presented on Uniswap at that time only, right? How the protocol works and everything. And that's what motivated me to go to Uniswap GitHub and look at their code, replicate it, they have test cases, run that test cases, try to understand how the flow of the project is, then try to deploy that using Remix, and then understand the code, what is written over there, and try to break it, right? That's the flow that you can follow for understanding the protocol more and more. If you have time, do the same for Aave, and of course, other protocols, whichever you like and want to work with. And of course, go for hackathons where you can work on the DeFi projects on top of these protocols, Uniswap or Aave or Compound, right? In that way, you'll have to read the code, you'll have to understand how it works, you'll have to read the docs that they have given, right? You'll have to join their Discord channel and go and ask questions over there, read the comments that is already over there, right? So all these things will eventually help you to understand more and more about the protocols that are in the industry, basically, yeah.
Yeah. Another point on that is like most protocols have first issues, like good first issues, like approachable issues that you can do. And if you really, really have your heart set on a protocol and you want to get a job there, first of all, go look at their open job positions, although those tend to be really out of date. I don't know what it is about crypto projects, but like they're really bad at updating jobs. But what you can do is go onto their repo, do those first issues, then like message the team on Discord and be like, hey, I've done these good first issues. I would love to contribute more. And then they might give you like bigger issues. They might even give you issues through Gitcoin, which I cannot believe we haven't spoken about yet. Oh my God, go do Gitcoin grants. But hold on, back to my point. And then you go do these issues on the protocol and you can actually build up a good enough reputation with the protocol team that they might offer you a job there. Like that's another avenue to get a job, is to actually just go and like throw in the time to a protocol, get friendly with the devs, do good work, and you might get a job. You might not, and you might have just thrown like 20 hours into nothing, but you didn't throw 20 hours into nothing because you got all those commits. So don't worry about it too much. Like, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay,
there's a
advice.
question about Web2 background. Given that I don't have a Web2 background, do you think it would be a good idea to do another Web2 bootcamp before pursuing a Web3 job?
Okay, I mean, that's actually up to you, I would say, basically, because you don't have to go through a bootcamp completely. I mean, you can go for a Udemy or Coursera course, learn about it. I mean, like how Web3 works, especially the front end part, because with the blockchain, you don't have to work a lot more on the back end, but basically on the front end part using Ethers and Web3.js, right? And your smart contracts that are deployed, how to integrate that. So it would be like going through React, but I think React documentation will help you enough over there, and learning JavaScript can help you, because JavaScript will also play a good part, like in writing the test cases for your smart contracts on a TypeScript also. So yeah, it will help you eventually, but going for a full bootcamp might not be that much of a good idea. You just have to learn. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I would definitely second the stuff about JavaScript. If you cannot write good JavaScript, you are really going to struggle. Even if you get a job as just a Solidity developer, you will write a lot of JavaScript in your time, because all of your tests will be JavaScript. All of your deployment scripts will be JavaScript. All of your utilities will be JavaScript. All the libraries you work with will be JavaScript. The testing framework you use is JavaScript. You need to understand how JavaScript works. So if you don't feel comfortable in your JavaScript, I would definitely go do a JavaScript course, and then while you're doing the JavaScript course, keep working on Solidity, because that Solidity is a fickle language like that. If you stop working on it for too long, coming back to it is really hard, especially if you haven't really cemented that skill yet. So definitely spend time on JavaScript or TypeScript, but I wouldn't worry too much about TypeScript until you've got a solid grasp on JavaScript, because TypeScript is JavaScript but harder. So start with JavaScript. Yeah.
Definitely, and yeah, that should be there.
Okay, I think we've come to 5 minutes to 8 GMT. Any one last question? Okay, seems to be no more questions. Thank you so much for both of you for your time. Please give them a round of applause. Yeah, thanks so much. So I would like to just take a few minutes of this time to discuss what kind of events would you guys like to have for the future meetups. And I would really like to have a few volunteers to also help me out here as well, to maybe find speakers or organize events. So I would really appreciate if any one of you could volunteer and help out. Anyone wants to have any ideas? So what the ideas that I have are like, for example, coding talks. Maybe we can look at some deep dive into some protocol, and of course we need one person to be prepared and go through the code with everyone, share what he or she learns about the code. Another kind of example of events would be career event. We can invite some people from for example, from DAO or from other companies to talk about what their project is and how you can join as a developer. Or we could also have physical meetup if possible. So anyone wants to voice your opinion? Okay, we can discuss further in our WhatsApp group. Where is the WhatsApp? Can anyone post the WhatsApp link, please?
I just wanted to say that something that like also really helped me in the beginning was getting involved in groups that go through code. Like definitely if you guys have the time to do that, having a group of people just read through code together and ask questions and be like, why does it work like that? And just like diving into it as a group, even if none of you know anything, is very helpful. Definitely do that.
Thank you, Luke. So yeah, everyone, if you want to continue this discussion, we can please join the WhatsApp group. We can discuss further over there about future events and what kind of things you guys would like to do for this meetup. So thank you very much for both of you for your time. Wish you all the best in this new year and in your career and life in general.
Thanks. Yeah, you too.
Yeah, keep doing great projects, guys, and keep having these group calls. Basically, this will for sure help you, right? Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you both. And thank you, Francis, for organizing this evening. It's
no
great.
problem.
Cool. Ciao, everyone.
Okay, good night, everyone.
Night, night.
Yeah. Good night, guys. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.